What is going on, guys? We are going to be talking about unequivocally the best division in football over the next few days. And I'm starting off with a team that I believe is really, really underrated, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. And in particular, I want to talk about what impact is Davante Adams going to have on this Raiders team. In short, I think it's a big impact. I think there's more positives than there are negatives, but there are some negatives, like always. But when I first look at it, I see Davante Adams can win anywhere on the field. We've seen an ability to win deep down the field. Even though that's not necessarily his strong suit, but he can do that, at least enough to keep a corner honest. And when we talk about the short to intermediate game, Davante Adams is probably the best receiver in the world at winning quick, fast, and in a hurry. How good he is and how smooth he is for a big, long receiver is impressive. Like we see somebody like I just talked about Deontay Johnson the other day. A really quick, shifty receiver right off the line can get open instantaneously. Davante can do the same thing, and he's not nearly as small as Davante. Or I'm sorry, Deontay. too many Davante's Deontay's. But he is such an elite route runner. He uses the corner's technique, his leverage against him. He just so consistently wins. But a question you have to ask yourself is how much is that to do with his chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? Derek Carr is no slouch at all. But you're not going to have that rapport right away. And you're not going to have that rapport this season or next season. It's just that's something that years and years and years took practice, took the reps. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can build enough of a rapport to, really get things clicking. I think they're both, good enough to really play at an extremely high level. When I said there might be a little bit of an issue, here's what I'm kind of thinking, what I'm seeing with this Raiders offense is Davante's bread and butter is winning that, 0 to 10 yard kind of area. And that's also Hunter Renfro's kind of go-to area. He's a really hard guy to cover off the line out of that slot, running whips and slants and drags. He knows how to beat zone. He knows how to beat man. So with those two guys kind of working in that same grounds, it might make the defense play a little tighter. And they don't necessarily have anybody who's fantastic at blowing the top off. If they had somebody, I'm not talking about they have to have another great receiver, but somebody who's just really good at blowing the top off. And maybe that's their only skill set just to get them on the field. Like somebody like they had Deshaun Jackson, right? If they had a not necessarily prime, but nearly prime Deshaun Jackson, he would be a perfect fit for this team because it just makes those safeties play a little bit further back. And you maybe have, Renfro working in that 3 to 5 yard range on those whips and slants, and you have Davante running digs right behind those linebackers. And it's going to put that defense in turmoil, and those safeties have to stay back off the dig because you have somebody like Deshaun Jackson or maybe a Smoke Brown, just somebody who can stretch that field. So, just that might be a little bit of an issue this season, and that's kind of be seen. They put a lot of money went into Davante Adams. They paid Hunter Renfro. They have Darren Waller, who again is going to be probably working in that same area again. But they have 3 legit guys, and that's never a bad thing. Even if those guys all kind of work in the same area, I mean, you're talking about 3 of the most elite guys at what they do. Hunter Renfro might be the best slot receiver in football right now. Davante Adams is probably the best receiver in football right now. And I don't really see how that's arguable until we see this season. And maybe it's a lot more, Aaron Rodgers carried a little bit more of that than we thought. I don't think that's necessarily it because I think they're both just phenomenal Hall of Fame players. And Darren Waller is, at worst case scenario, 3rd best tight end in the league. I mean, that's absolutely worst case. So this offense is going to be really, really interesting, really, really fun to watch. It's going to be interesting to kind of see what they do out of that backfield with Kenyon Drake coming off the ankle injury. Jacobs, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. They got the Georgia back White coming out. So it's going to be interesting. Hopefully they don't get too one-dimensional with this offense being so dynamic. I expect a lot of early leads from this offense, or at least pulling out in the second half. And that's going to let these defensive ends for the Raiders. Pin their ears back, man. I'm a big fan of this Las Vegas Raiders defense. They have, Crosby coming off the edge. They have Chandler Jones coming off the edge. They lost some guys. They had they have had a lot of mix up over the years as far as that back half of the defense. But I think they're starting to put it together. I'm still an Abrams fan. So we look at that, man. I do think Crosby is a dark horse defensive player of the year candidate. I'm surprised he's not getting a little bit more love. We saw in their playoff game. I mean, he literally beat his dude every snap. I mean, this guy's an absolute headache. He's really taken that leap. We know what Chandler Jones can do when he's super focused and when he's on his A game. We saw him have a 5-sack game last year. So if he's going to be getting single, one-on-ones most of the game, you're expecting Crosby to get a lot of doubles or at least chips. So I just think it's going to open up a lot of options. It's going to let that Raiders defense really play to their full potential and kind of play to their strengths if they can develop those early and late leads. And I didn't mention this earlier. Just a kind of another maybe problem with this offense is Carr's been known as kind of a check down guy, which, of course, like I said, they have 3 guys working in that same kind of check down, shortish range, which should be good. But again, that's another thing that makes me think that defense might play a little tighter. But we did see like Derek Carr has this weird, odd talent that like stats can't show how good it is, but just throwing up deep balls and his wide receivers are drawing PIs. So again, it doesn't have to be a complete pass, but if you're threatening the deep ball, you're throwing, you're dropping raindrops out there, right? But those safeties have to play back because of that. They don't want to get the PI calls. But I don't necessarily think Derek Carr is just a check down guy. I think you're selling the guy short. We saw him have a MVP type season and then break his leg. It took a year or 2 to kind of get his feet back underneath of him. And last year he was excellent. I thought he was a top 10 guy last year. Is he in the Rodgers, Brady, Mahomes category? No. But I think like this year, if you look at it, he has more talent than those guys. I mean, I would rather have the supporting cast on the Raiders than the Chiefs, than the Chargers, than Tampa Bay. I really like this core. I think it could be very, very dangerous. I like all 3 running backs out of the backfield. I love their top 3 targets. I think this team is going to be a headache, and I think there's some guys that are going to do some things just because they're going to be forgotten pieces by the defense, because you have to put so much accountability on guys like Waller, Renfro, Adams, that somebody like a Kenyon Drake, we can see him come alive in the passing game. We can see Monroe get some reps at that second tight end position. So it's going to be really, really interesting. I'm excited to see it. I might be putting some money on the Raiders to win the West. I'm definitely going to be putting some money on Crosby to win Defensive Player of the Year. And I might even throw a few dollars on Carr to win an MVP. I mean, if this team goes up 12-5, 13-4, wins the division, nobody's expecting it. Even the Broncos are getting a little bit more love than them. And I think the Broncos are talented, but I don't think they're as talented as the Raiders. And I kind of actually like Carr more than Russell Wilson, to be honest. I'm probably in a minority there. Russell Wilson's a difficult guy to play with because he can't play in structure, which I'll be talking about in a video later this week. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think the Raiders are contenders or are they pretenders, man? Drop in the comments. Let's talk about it. I want to hear what you guys think. Until next time, I'll see you guys.